key takeout.
Yes, indeed.
Sounds like a menu, doesn't it? Something.
Yeah, right. So now, let's try to think where we are. Oh, so I don't know whether we mentioned this offline, but the BBC's big survey, BBC's Price of Football survey came out, and that's on the BBC's website. Biggest takeaways there? Things that stood out to you?
So Tottenham obviously comes second. Their cheapest prices are the second most expensive. And again, they come second in that their most expensive tickets are the second most expensive. I mean, for me, it was more of a trend thing. If you look, I think there were only no clubs. In fact, there were no clubs that had made any tickets more expensive last year. So there were no increases. The majority had frozen their prices, and 3 or 4 had reduced their prices. So that, for me, tells me that maybe we've approached and reached a tipping point in terms of actual ticket pricing to attend football matches. If that is the case, then that's quite interesting. So we still push on, obviously, on, as Martin touched on, with the national campaigning. That's not just on away tickets, that's on home tickets also. So via the Football Supporters Federation, we still have dialogue with the Premier League over this. So we'd be hopefully looking to push for more of that £5.14 billion TV deal to come onto ticket pricing. So that's kind of my key takeout, Martin.
Yeah, that's about right. I think it's that the trend is that potentially a tipping point has been reached. I think it's interesting seeing the way the Premier League press office is reacting to that survey as well. That they're emphasising the range of ticket prices that are on offer. But I think the idea, the response a few years ago would have just been that this is a luxury entertainment. Market forces determine that. The prices are what they are, and if they keep going up, then they're going to keep going up. And I think there's a realization in the game now that we've probably gone as far as we can in terms of ticket pricing. Even though stadiums are pretty full now, I think people are starting to hurt a little bit as well in terms of what they've been asked to pay for prices. And there is also the background, as Kat said, of this £5.14 billion TV deal. That's just a domestic TV deal. So, you add on the overseas rights that the Premier League are currently negotiating as well. There's a lot of money going into the game, and not unreasonably, fans are saying, ticket prices have gone up 700% in the last 15 years. Lots of money's now coming into the game. Maybe it's time to start looking at the ticket prices, because the Premier League sells the crowd at English football games as part of the product. That is one of the reasons why the game is so popular across the world, because of the passion of the fans. So if we're being sold as part of the product, then some of the benefits for that should come back to the fans, we're saying as well. And of course, football is now a business, and there's no argument with that, and market forces are going to play a part, but it's about balance. So I think Kat's absolutely right to say that it's looking at the trend. And the trend is that, those steep rises that we've seen in previous years, and the kind of, the generally, prices going up, I hope we've got to the end of that. But there doesn't seem to be a great push to raise prices in the way there was maybe even 5 years ago. Some of that is down to fan campaigning as well. But it's fan campaigning, it's pressure in the media as well. People are starting to ask questions about the amount of money the game's got and the amount of money that people have been asked to pay for tickets.
Yeah, it's a little bit disconcerting, right? That to your point, $5.1 billion just for the UK rights alone. Yet Spurs are trying to float another 2% across the board ticket price increase when we're already the second highest ticket in the game.
I think we can talk about this, can't we, Kat? We'll be honest.
Go for it, Martin.
We put this exactly to the club, and they said, well, it's all very well talking about the £5.14 billion, but of course that's been shared out equally between all the clubs. We're the only ones that are building a new stadium, so that's why we might need to raise some extra money, which could potentially seem like a very good argument. But then, every club has got its own issues that it needs to budget for. Every club has got its own income streams and sort of spending commitments that it needs to budget for as well. So I'm not sure we're entirely buying this kind of the 2% increase is needed to build a new stadium. And if you actually you did the calculation, didn't you?
Yeah. It's 0.1%.
By the way, I did it. I did it too. Yeah, it's a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, the incremental pounds that's raised from that increase in terms of the ability to, it's not a lot of money. It's like £500,000.
It's not even that.
It's nothing.
I think the average season ticket at Tottenham is £880 We've got 21,500 of those. They're not all going to be adults neither, remember, and concessions are still frozen. So for next year, they're proposing a 2% price rise for adults, but anybody, so any junior under 18 or anyone over 65, their price remains frozen. So you need to chunk off those numbers as well. So the most is going to be like 375 or something like that. It won't even be 500,000.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible that they might need to demonstrate that, income streams are continuing to rise or whatever. But then, you still go back to this whole question of, the fans essentially, if we're going to be used as collateral for funding the new stadium, then what are we getting back other than the chance to pay lots of money to go and sit in a new stadium? I don't think it's unreasonable to say we would want something more than that. I think when we talked right at the start of the podcast about how much detail is going to be gone into on things like this, I don't think we're ever going to get to that level of detail in a board-to-board meeting because it's essentially a private company. But what's becoming very clear to us and what was brought up by some of our members at the members' meeting the other night is that what we need to do is sit down and actually start building some fairly detailed and well-costed financial alternatives to put forward to challenge the arguments which say things like, the new stadium is dependent on the 2% rise in season ticket prices next year. And we've got a number of people who work in the kind of financial sector who have offered to help us out on that, who are trust members. So that's something that we're going to be trying to do over the next few weeks. But it's a lot of work to do for a voluntary organisation, and we're up against people whose job it is to do this, and who are speaking to the banks and putting the deals together every day. So, it's the size of the task that we're up against, but there's no alternative. We've got to do that if we're not going to just go into meetings and say, we think it might be quite a good idea if you don't mind actually if you put the prices down a bit. I think we're going to need a little bit more than that.
Yeah, well, one thing I'd love for whoever's involved with that financial analysis, knowing the average price is one thing, or the high and the low, but what I'd love to know is what's the real average, the real weighted average cost. Take out the corporate seats. What's the weighted average cost of a ticket for supporters in the stands? We know what the high is, and we know what the low is. But what's that real average look like? I'd love to know what that is.
That'd be great.
Because there's big disparity there. I mean, I think what's our most expensive ticket? Like 80-something quid, and then the lowest I think is what 30, 31 is it?
Yeah, on a Cat C game in the South Stand, North Stand lower or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, that's a big delta. I mean, 50 quid. So what's the average? What's the real average? Let me see. We did have one question as it relates to transfer window.
Right.
I mean, the minutes seemed like Levy gave a pretty robust rundown of responsibilities and all that good stuff. But there was one thing that he said that gave us a little bit of a cause for pause, and we'd love to get your personal views on it. He said that transfer funds were still ring-fenced. They would remain a focus on strong performances on the pitch. We would, however, need to be pragmatic and realistic, which is such a great out, right? That said, on-pitch performance underpins everything and would be a priority. Trying to read between the lines, what do you think he really means by being pragmatic and realistic? Some people feel like that we didn't do as much as we should have done this transfer window because we were stockpiling money for the financing of the stadium. Would love to.
Yeah, and I disagree with that. I just think that West Brom's director of football or owner, whoever it was, that kept balking.
Jeremy Beasley.
Yeah, at the very
I'm probably more inclined to.
Ridiculous. I thought we had a great transfer window. I thought we spent more than enough money and brought in some really really good talent, but we still needed another striker to help Harry.
I don't disagree with you there.
I think I read what on the question you asked. I think personally I read what Daniel said as making sure that you don't give any hostages to fortune. I think it would be foolish to say, it's the kind of never say never, isn't it? We don't know what situations will come up. So I think he was just saying it may well be that we'd have to be a little bit pragmatic. We'd have to juggle figures around a little bit. I absolutely, from my point of view, what I take is that they absolutely understand the importance of the connection between the stadium and what goes on inside the stadium. They know that we need to keep attracting players. They know that we need to spend on players. And I don't think they're looking to get into a position which some other clubs have got into when they've built stadiums where they've been restricted in the transfer market. But also, I think, the way that our dealings go in the transfer market is, well, we're less likely to get into those sort of situations. So, famously, Arsenal apparently were hampered in a transfer market. Now, I'm not entirely convinced how much they were, but the wages that they paid were significantly higher than the wages that we paid as well. That was the way that they chose to put their model together. So I think he had an eye on, the obvious concern is people saying we've got to have no money for buying players because we're building a stadium. I think the way a football club is funded now and the way this club is run is much more complex than that. But I think he was just trying to make sure there weren't any hostages to fortune there. But I think to people who would say they are worried that we might have a problem in the transfer market, I personally, I really get it very strongly from the members of the club board that they don't want that to happen. Now, that there are other arguments about whether you think our transfer spend is good or not, whether it's good to make a profit in every transfer window. Personally, I don't see there's a problem with making a profit on transfer dealing as long as you're buying the right players. And actually what we've seen over the last couple of years is that, we spent quite a lot of money after we sold Mr. Bale. And spending money doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get a good product for it.
Does it, Brendan Rodgers?
Well, that's another story, isn't it, as well? So I think I wouldn't be too worried, and I wouldn't read too much into what was said about that. I think it was just a chief executive being sensible and saying, look, let's be realistic. We might have to look at all of our options here, but absolutely, they were at pains to assure us that they get the fact that the playing side has to deliver as well as the stadium. If we've got a team which is languishing at the foot of the table and a 61,000 seater stadium, then obviously, we've got a bit of a problem. So they do get it.
Well, terrific, and a great segue talking about, we've got to have quality on the pitch. We had a football match yesterday.
Yeah.
Were both
of
you
going to talk about people
both
throwing
of you
the
there?
ball around and sort of balls
Yeah,
going to
can we
goals
do
and
that
things.
now?
I want to stick with
What'd
kind
you
of
reckon?
financial forecasting and all this kind of governance and all the interesting stuff.
Were you both there?
Yeah,
I know
both
Kat was there.
Yeah.
All right, so give us your thoughts.
A bit disappointing,
it was a bit flat,
really, I
wasn't
thought. Yeah.
Well,
Didn't live up to the hype, did it really?
we were really looking forward to the game, and I think we're
know.
both quite big Klopp fans, and we like what he did at Dortmund, and that was the story, wasn't it? And apparently Spurs were playing as well, so it's nice to see us get a bit of. That's what all the cameras were there for at the start, to photograph Pochettino's Manager of the Month award.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
There might have been something going on with the opposition manager. I'm not quite sure what that was, but it was as often when you look forward to a game like this, because I think we were both really up for it. We've been talking during the week and saying, this is a great occasion. This is the sort of thing that you go along for. And it was just a bit flat, really.
Like a bottle of flat Coke, wasn't it? Slightly annoying. Took off the lid and there was no fizz.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, first 30 minutes seemed like they really had us on our heels a little bit and really surprised us, and they were definitely the benefit or reaping the benefits of a pretty aggressive pressing. And I thought they'd tire, and they really didn't.
I thought they'd tire too. I was kind of waiting for about the 65th, 70th minute where they would start cramping up, this new Klopp style. And, Emre Can, he was all over the pitch. And I was like, he's going to crack a valve and die. They're not used to running like this. They're just not. And they're not going to be able to keep up with us. And ultimately they did. We had our moments. Harry, I'm going to tell you what, he's hitting balls that went in last year that just are not falling for him right now. And a lot of people are just going mental on social media over it. And it's, all you can do is look at it and just say, listen, relax. It's going to be okay.
I think it's going to happen. I thought he looked mentally quite tired. I thought physically he had a really good game and he battled away. But I think there's a bit of mental tiredness there as well. But you're going to get periods like that.
Yeah, and I really hope they find a way to rest him midweek against Anderlecht. I really do.
I don't. I'm going out there.
Oh, are you really? Well, that's a bit of a rough place, eh, Kat? Right? They're not the nicest fans in the world, are they?
I've never been. But
especially to the English.
I'll let you know on Friday morning.
There's a bit of history between the two clubs, but
just a little bit. Something to do with a penalty shootout or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but the last time we went over there,
I
don't think there were any problems, and this can be quite a nice. If you find the right bits of Brussels, and find a decent restaurant in a fish market or something, it can be quite a nice trip as well. So
I think you'll find a lot of other Tottenham fans as well in and around. There's a lot of people that follow us on the Twitter page that are going, seeing a lot of tweets out there. So that'll be good.
Yeah, it's really popular.
Yeah, and Kat's got a big kind of itinerary planned for doing all the art galleries and all that kind of stuff during the day as well. So,
Cloak. Stop.
It's a kind of cultural trip for her, really. She said, "I'm not going near any bars, for sure."
Oh my god.
One of the things that really stood out for me yesterday was the defensive midfield play. Dembele came in, hasn't played in I don't know how long, and we started the match good, bad, or indifferent with 4 of the Belgian Red Devils on the pitch, and then Chadley got hurt early. But the defensive pairing of Vertonghen and Alderweireld has been, I think, catalyst in how well the defense has played. And we played good defending, or good defense rather, under AVB, but the football was